Around the beginning of the Lost Agent arc, promotion was really starting to ramp up for the fourth and what would turn out to be the final animated Bleach movie, Bleach Hell Chapter, or Hellverse, or whatever you want to call it. It was the film about Hell. Now, Hell as a topic in Bleach is kind of a weird one. Obviously, Bleach is about the afterlife, so you would expect there to be some kind of Hell to be the counterpart to Soul Society's Heaven. Now, Hell appears very, very briefly at the start of the series, and we discover that a spirit that has committed evil deeds during their time as a living human is actually more likely to go to Hell than they are to go to the Soul Society, even if they are purified by a Shinigami Zanpakuto. We get to see the Hollow Shrieker impaled on an enormous blade and carried away into the depths of Hell, presumably never to be seen again, or so we thought. The fourth Bleach movie deals with the denizens of Hell known as the Togobito, who are essentially immortal criminals who will continually be revived inside Hell but have no means of escaping their prison. And honestly, I really liked the Hell movie, but specifically I was really intrigued by the Hell tie-in chapter that Kubo himself illustrated for Shonen Jump as part of a double feature, like I said at the start of the Lost Agent arc, and that's what we're going to look at today, because it includes the fates of two well-known Bleach villains, Szayelaporro Granz and Aranjero Arueri, two members of the Espada. Before we begin, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, guys, make sure to do so, as you are in the perfect place for Bleach content just like this one every single week. Follow me on Twitter, the name is going to be appearing on the screen below, and join the Discord as well to be part of this community. And don't forget to hit that notification bell to keep seeing my videos when they release every single week. So, I'd be lying if I said that I was more excited for the usual Bleach chapter when this rolled around, this double feature. It was so unusual for Bleach to get two chapters in 1 week, and one of them turned out to be the tie-in promotional chapter for the fourth Bleach movie, and it actually depicted two Espada finding themselves in Hell. This was such a curious concept because, frankly, I definitely never expected to see these characters again, and it was just really, really cool to get a chance to see where they ended up after their defeat at the hands of their respective Shinigami opponents. The actual canonicity of these events, I would say, is probably debatable, although I personally consider this particular chapter to be canon, and as it was written and drawn by Kubo himself. It is the Bleach manga, so I think that's really cool. The actual events of the film, whether they're canon or not, it's hard to say. I think the 4 Bleach movies are generally considered to be non-canon, although aspects of those films have since been canonized, for instance, the Valley of Screams in Memories of Nobody. So I think the characters of Shuren and his Togobito minions do exist. It's just whether or not the events of the film actually happen or not. It doesn't really matter either way. What we're here to talk about is Szayel and Aranjero and their eventual fates. So, two figures crash land in Hell, surprisingly at exactly the same time, despite the fact that Aranjero was definitely dead for a long time before Szayelaporro, but that doesn't really matter at the end of the day. It's just really cool to see these two guys again, especially as Aranjero basically got no panels in the manga showing his actual true form. He only shows it for, I would genuinely say, about 5 to 6, 7 panels, and then he goes back to looking like Kaien again. So it's really nice to get to see this one last time. As for why they're in Hell, that's confusing. In this video, I'm not going to go too far into the stuff about Szayelaporro from Spirits Are Always With You, the light novel, but there's definitely stuff in there that could indicate that he definitely committed some crimes as a human, and I think his personality would allow you to believe that to be true. Aranjero is a more curious subject, however. He claims to be a Gillian, which implies that he really is just a amalgamation of hollow spirits. So how does that work? How does he go to Hell? Unless, of course, every spirit that made him up committed bad things during their time as a human. Or is it kind of done on like a ratio? Is it 50% of the hollows that make him up were evil as humans, therefore, sorry Aranjero, you're going to Hell? It's kind of hard to say. I don't really know why he's in Hell, but he is. But I really love the dynamic between these two characters once they arrive here, because you never get this sort of thing in the manga. In my opinion, the Espada do not talk to each other enough in the series. I actually think the Sturmiter are a little bit better for that. And while the Espada all have their own unique kind of designs and motivations and stuff like that, they don't really interact that much with each other. So this is a really nice piece of Bleach content. It's also the first time we get a properly good look at Hell itself. And they're on the floor where there's lots of those golden lava pools, which in my opinion was honestly one of my favourite visuals from this version of Hell. However, the two of them land in Hell and they are immediately at each other's throats, which is something I really like as well, because obviously the Espada, Arrancars, and most Hollows in general are completely unhinged and will just look for a fight at the first chance they get. And I really appreciate that here, even if Szayelaporro is supposed to be the calm, collected, intelligent guy of the group, or at least he likes to think he is. Even he's ready to go have a fight with Aranero when the time comes. Szayelaporro comments on how sturdy Aranero's tank must be to have survived falling from such a height and not sustaining a single crack. Aranero comments that he thinks Zayel wanted the tank to break, but Zayel says that actually no, you've got that wrong. I'd maybe just like to have got a little bit of a crack in it. Then I could have smashed it myself and studied the fluids within, and that obviously sets Aranero off, and he starts raging. We then get a little bit of insight into their potential relationship up in Hueco Mundo. Aranero says that he's always hated Szayelaporro for some reason, but, don't know why, but it's cool that he does. But now is his chance to kill him, feast upon him with glottoneria, and then Szayelaporro will live forever inside of him, which is pretty creepy. However, trying to be the thinker of the two of them, Szayelaporro comments that maybe they should actually stop this fighting and try and figure out where they are, because neither of them have any idea what this new location they found themselves in is, and also, interestingly, neither of them seem to be able to remember the fact that they have actually been killed, which is something that gets they get reminded of in a moment. However, Aranero's not really up for looking around at the moment, and instead just wants to kill Zayel. And Szayelaporro mentions the fact that Eisen gave them an easy-to-understand criterion. Even imbeciles like Aranero can work it out. Szayelaporro is the 8th Espada, Aranero is the 9th, therefore Aranero loses. And I'm actually kind of surprised that Szayelaporro reduces it down to such a simple fact. It's quite obviously not the case that it's that simple. As Aranero himself even points out, outside of his laboratory, Szayelaporro is at quite a disadvantage. Whether he would win or not is actually kind of debatable, although I do believe that Aranero was probably, by some margin, the weakest of the Espada. However, before they're able to actually come to blows, they are interrupted by a mysterious figure who calls himself Shuren, who appears to be a, resident of Hell, some kind of boss of Hell of some kind anyway. He's actually a Togabito who's trying to escape Hell. He's a prisoner there. And he commands a group of Togabito made up of some pretty interestingly designed characters, Gunjo, Garogai, and Taikon. Taikon being genuinely one of the most disgusting looking Bleach characters I've ever seen in my life. But all four of these guys have really cool designs, specifically Shuren I think actually looks really awesome. And I love the little details in this chapter. I love the fact that Kubo remembered that he gave Szayelaporro the new outfit just before he died with the cape and everything like that, and that's actually how he appears down here. I do like that sort of thing. And also, it's quite interesting as well, before we get into the next section, this isn't the final time two Espada would compare themselves based on their ranks in the series. Grimjo and Neliel will do exactly the same thing in the Thousand Year Blood War arc, when Grimjo comments that Aizen's not around anymore, so the fact that he's 6 and she's 3 doesn't mean anything, and he could take her on. So I thought that was really nice that the Espada have this interesting fixation on their numbers that Aizen gave them, and even to the point where Aizen's not around anymore, they do actually, some of them regard it as an actual genuine indicator of their strength, which I thought was fascinating. Anyway, Shuren arrives and comments on how that they basically can't escape where they are because they are in Hell. At this point, Aranero challenges Shuren to a fight, but Shuren comments that they are all already dead, and so doing so would be utterly pointless. It's here now that Zayel remembers that he was in fact killed by Mayuri, but perhaps a little out of character for Zayel, he actually jumps at Shuren, really having no idea who this guy is or what he's capable of, and tries to attack him. I would assume there is some desperation in what Szayelaporro is doing here. He claims to not really know anything about Hell. He says, is there a way to escape this place? To which Shuren replies, obviously not. You're here for good. Which is kind of interesting. And Zayel, I would assume, is freaking out a little bit, even if he's not really showing it. That's why he's attacking Shuren without really considering the situation first. But Shuren says to them that, that there is no way for you to get out of here. And Szayelaporro says, you better tell me if there is. There's no point in hiding it. We might be able to escape the pain of death in here, but the pain of torture is very real. So implying that he will torture Shuren to get the information out of him, if that's what it takes. However, Aranero appears again, this time in his resurrection, which was really cool. I definitely didn't expect to see Glottoneria a second time. And he tries to attack Shuren and Shuren's 3 cronies, and a big fight starts to break out. Now, what I really liked about this little chapter was that Kubo really milked the two Espada for everything they were worth. I love the fact that we see both of their resurrections again in this tiny little chapter. So Aruñero is taking on Gunjo Garugai and Taikon in his resurrection, and Szayelaporro is taking on Shuren for Nicaros, and he basically tries to attack him with a Gran Rey Cero as well. It's like, what, Kubo is kind of going all out here. I really like that, because Zayel actually never uses a Cero in the mainline manga. Shuren correctly assumes that he's using a Gran Rey Cero, and Zayel is surprised at how well informed the man is. But Zayel says that it doesn't matter if he kills him, he can always analyze his ash and then discover a way to escape. However, Shuren says that you have deduced that I am unnecessary. We think alike. I too have deduced that you are unnecessary. Szayelaporro grants, and Zayel absolutely just completely rages out, calls him conceited, and tries to attack him. Unfortunately, due to the chapter's restraints, it being a one-shot, the rest of the fight is completely cut out, and we then see a unreleased Zayel and Aruñero lying, potentially killed, in Hell. Now, as far as I'm aware, you basically arrive in Hell kind of as yourself, and then once you die in there, you are trapped for eternity as a Togobito. So I would assume Szayelaporro and Aruñero are now Togobito. They now have the whole get-up, they now have the masks and stuff, and they won't be able to escape because the Watchers, the Kusanada I believe they're called, will always be watching them. So it's a pretty dark and depressing fate for two of Bleach's most famous villains, but I like it though. I do like it. I like the... it really expands on the lore, having two of the bad guys end up in Hell. I do think Hell should have been explored anyway in Bleach. It really is kind of weird that Kubo only really mentions it once, so I like that he went back to it here. The fact that these Togobito were able to absolutely decimate two released Espada is a bit of a point of contention. I'm not entirely sure if it really makes that much sense. The Togobito's power level kind of seems to be a bit all over the place. I guess, considering it's a one-shot, it doesn't really matter how powerful they are. They're never really going to appear again, apart from in the movie later on down the line. Kubo just needed them to defeat the Espada in this little chapter. So I would say it's less of a reflection on the power of Szayelaporro and Aruñero, and more just it's a plot thing they had to lose for the plot to continue. But it's basically revealed that Shuren is trying to break open the gates of Hell with pure power. And the reason he claimed that Szayelaporro was unnecessary is because he's deduced already that he's just not powerful enough to do it. And we see in his really cool fiery lantern thing that he's actually after Ichigo, or more specifically Ichigo's fully realised hollow form. But yeah, this was just a really quick video, guys, going over the fates of two of the Espada, Szayelaporro Grans and Aruñero Ararueri. Although Zayel does appear later on in the Thousand Year Blood War arc as a hallucination to Mayuri, this is the final time we see these guys in essentially their living bodies, shall we say, even though they're dead. Dead twice over. Death does get a bit weird in Bleach when you think about it. They died in Hueco Mundo, which in itself is in the afterlife, and then they get to Hell, and then they die again. And then but I guess now they're technically immortal, because as Togobito, if they're killed, they will eventually regenerate. But they are now bound by the chains of Hell to an eternity in that plane of existence, which, yeah, is pretty rough. Like I said, the light novel Spirits Are Always With You does go into the stuff about Szayelaporro a little bit more, but whether that's canon again or not is something we can get into another time. But like I said, I'm perfectly happy to consider this one-shot canon piece of material. I think it's really, really interesting. I think this version of Hell is really cool. It looks really awesome. I like the character of Shuren. I've got no problem with him appearing either. And it's just really nice to get closure on what happened to a couple of the Espada. Closure, I guess, that we didn't necessarily need, because it was pretty obvious that Aruñero and Szayelaporro had died. But yeah, really cool to see them either way. But primarily, the main thing for me is the fact that we get real interaction between two characters that I never would have expected to see interact ever. So that was really cool. And like I said, Aruñero is barely in the manga as it is. He doesn't get to interact with anyone really outside of Rukia. So yeah, really nice that Kubo thought of him, and really nice that he came back. But that's it for this video, guys. A slightly shorter one on the fates of these two Espada. Let me know in the comments below, do you consider this to be canon? What's your opinion on the canonicity of the movies themselves? And also, do you like what happened to Szayelaporro and Aruñero, and were you happy to see them one last time? Guys, if you haven't subscribed to my channel already, make sure to do that, as we are nearly at 20k, which is absolutely insane. But until next time, guys, I shall catch you later. I'll see you then.